Enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2 or post your name and number to GB07 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 30th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
GB News Breakfast. Every day from 6 a.m.
Anton du Beke, and even I know that's a big name, has become the latest Strictly Come Dancing pro to come under some sort of fire amid the show's misconduct probe.
Yeah, his former partner, Layla Ruiz, told her lawyers that du Beke made offensive comments to her back in 2009.
Which you have to accept is quite a while ago, but it's almost as though things are building. He has since apologised, and she has accepted the apology. But what on earth is absolutely going on inside Strictly Come Dancing?
I have to say it has been a strictly witch hunt this week because, you know, it's been like the snowball effect. You know, a couple of months ago we had Amanda Abbington who came out with accusations against Giovanni Panice.
Now, I don't even know who she is. Who is she?
So she's an actress. She's been on there she is. She left the show early because she said due to personal distress. She now then came out and said actually working with Giovanni Panice caused her PSTD. Another dancer, Graziano Di Prima, who's now left because there was videos that had surfaced that apparently he was physically abusive towards his partner Zara McDermott, who this week actually came up with her side of the story and said that actually during training sessions she was kicked by him and physically abused by him. So he's now left the show.
Is this a case of celebrities being snowflakes, or is there something in this? Is this something more sinister?
You know, Martin, there's always two sides to a story, and the dancers are coming from that point of view where they say it's because we want to win. But when you're a celebrity who might not have much dancing experience, you think about the glitz and the glamour of Strictly, but what we're hearing now is a lot of celebrities over the years have said, I've been left with PSTD. I was physically abused when I was on Strictly, verbally abused. And so now we're getting all the other sides to what actually celebrities are saying they're experiencing.
The People's Channel.
Welcome to State of the Nation, daily plunge into the stories shaping our country. I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and Monday to Thursday we bring you the insights, the facts, the truth about how our country is being governed. Because what happens in Downing Street matters down your street. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
The news at 11 o'clock. Police say a 17-year-old boy has been arrested on suspicion of murder and attempted murder after 2 children died during a ferocious knife attack in Southport on Merseyside today. 9 other children have been injured in the attack. 6 of those are in a critical condition in hospital. They all sustained stab wounds. 2 adults were also injured as they tried to protect the children from the attacker. Police are saying officers were shocked when they attended an emergency call just after 11:30 this morning, and when they arrived saw multiple children had been stabbed during a summer holiday dance class. Nearby Alder Hey Children's Hospital declared a major incident and asked people to avoid using A&E. Police are now saying the 17-year-old boy that's been arrested is from Banks, just north of Southport, and is originally from Cardiff. There are media reports tonight in the Telegraph newspaper saying that the suspect moved to the Southport area with his Rwandan parents when he was 6. Police are saying the incident is not being treated as terror-related. However, Counter-Terrorism Police North West have offered their support to Merseyside Police as the full circumstances of what has happened are being established. Merseyside Police Chief Constable Serena Kennedy spoke this afternoon about the bravery of some of the adults involved in the horrific incident.
2 adults are also in a critical condition after being injured during the incident. A 17-year-old male from Banks in Lancashire, who is originally from Cardiff, has been arrested on suspicion of murder and attempted murder, and is being taken to a police station where he will be interviewed by detectives. We believe that the adults who were injured were bravely trying to protect the children who were being attacked.
Well, this evening, His Majesty the King has sent his most heartfelt condolences, prayers and deepest sympathies to the families and loved ones of the victims of this utterly horrific stabbing. And the Prince and Princess of Wales also sent their love, thoughts and prayers to the victims of what they've called the heinous attack, adding, "As parents, we cannot begin to imagine what the families, friends and loved ones of those killed and injured today are going through." Well, the Prime Minister said earlier on today the whole country is shocked.
And I know I speak for everybody in the whole country in saying our thoughts and condolences with the victims, their families, their friends and the wider community. And it's almost impossible to imagine the grief that they're going through and the trauma that they're going through.
Prime Minister speaking earlier. The former BBC News presenter Hugh Edwards has been charged with 3 counts of making indecent images of children. That was confirmed by the Metropolitan Police. He's accused of having 6 Category A images, 12 Category B images and 19 Category C images. The offences are alleged to have taken place between December 2020 and April 2022, and they relate to images shared on a WhatsApp chat. Those are the latest GB News headlines. I'm Polly Middlehurst, and coming up next on GB News, headliners.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Hello and welcome to Headliners, your first look at Tuesday's top stories. I'm Simon Evans. Tonight I'm joined by 2 perfectly pleasant comedians, Josh Howie and Leo Kearse. Good evening. Obviously a little bit of weariness there in the teleprompter room. Couldn't come up with anything very funny, but you're all right, are you?
Yeah, I'm fine. You've shaved your beard?
Yeah, I have, yeah. I've got frog chin syndrome, as we discussed.
Oh, yeah? No, you look good.
No, but it's only in the owner's eyes, isn't it? Nobody else ever thinks. When you shave off your beard, in the mirror, you think to yourself, you now have the chin of a frog.
Right. A Frenchman.
Yeah, no, obviously. Weak chin, you know.
Josh has got the throat of a frog. Yeah.
You were fine 5 minutes ago.
I know, I don't know. It's something about the stress of coming out.
Getting nervous.
It just freaked me out.
Let's take a look at the front pages. They are obviously covered in the atrocity that we're all familiar with by now. Knife man kills 2 children in holiday club horror. That's on the Telegraph. The Times. Knife attack on children was like a horror movie. The Daily Mail. 2 children dead in holiday club carnage. The Guardian. 2 children dead and 9 injured in ferocious attack at dance class. The Metro. TV Hugh kid porn charge. And the Daily Star, carnage at the kids' club. Those were your very sad front pages. So, Josh, let's take the Daily Mail first.
Yeah, 2 children dead in holiday club carnage. This has been the story that's been developing through the day and just getting more and more horrific. You know,
a lot of speculation
online. Yes, that's it. It's like people coming up with theories and this. I think it's partly people say, oh, people using it for their own political ends, but I think it's also people. It's so horrific that you just don't want it to happen again, and whatever prevention that would allow it to not happen again. Like, I think people feel so out of control, it's the only way to try to regain some.
And there is also, I think, some sense in the media, some of the media is perhaps overcompensating for that and trying to suppress that and not being entirely honest with people. There was a bizarre BBC report, at least I saw it online, so it could conceivably have been faked out, but it was extraordinary if it did. In which they said, when was the last mass stabbing of children? And they said Dunblane, which I can't imagine anyone remembers Dunblane as anything other than a mass shooting. It's the single most famous mass shooting. It's kind of weird, you know, almost as if they're trying to reach for something that would take the heat out of the suspected immigrant, refugee, asylum seeker kind of narrative, which is bubbling under until we get some facts. Do you know what I mean? They try and swing it too far the other way.
Yeah, and obviously, you know, until we know the motive, or until we know what was, if there even, you know, was a motive, what the cause was, people will look to that. But the trouble is, even talking about it, you can get in a lot of trouble. You can be accused. Anybody who complains about it is running the risk of being, decried as some sort of bigot and being cancelled. So you can't even discuss it. I can't say the things that I want to say because I'll be accused of being a bigot.
I mean, at this point, we know very little. A certain amount of the lad's identity, a 17-year-old who is believed to have been born in Cardiff to, I think, Rwandan parents, but there's no suggestion of any sort of terror cell or anything of that kind. And obviously, I mean, I say obviously, but to my mind, it just feels like an outbreak of absolute psychotic.
Well, it's evil.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's it. That's how it feels, right?
And any parents, I mean, it's like you almost don't want to empathise.
But people are quick to jump on possible causes when it's they say it could be Andrew Tate or something like that.
Funny enough, he's coming up later. There was I think we'll probably be looking at it, but in relation with the Hugh Edwards thing. I'll come back to that. You've got something else on The Guardian, perhaps?
So The Guardian has Reeves Act to plug £22 billion black hole covered up by the Tories. I mean, she says covered up, but as the opposition, they would have had access to the same financial documents. So they knew. It's just, they want to make excuses because they're politicians. So they're going to raid 10 million pensioners, and apparently tax hikes are coming as well. So she's stripping most OAPs of winter fuel payments. And she hands junior doctors a 22% pay rise. She says she's defended limiting winter fuel payments to only those on benefits while hiking junior doctors' pay because you're going to need those doctors when your fingers fall off because of frostbite. So, I mean, I do sort of agree with this, and I think it's quite an almost Tory thing to do because a lot of wealth is concentrated in the older generation, in pensioners, and they get, a lot of breaks and they get benefits and stuff that not all of them need. But then, it is harsh to take away winter fuel payments from old people. That's kind of a bad look for a supposedly left-wing government. Also, I mean, this is going to get a lot worse. By 2029, the public sector pensions will be a massive millstone around the government's neck. It's going to be, over £50 billion. Apparently, they're not going to be able to finance it. So they're going to either have to slash public sector pensions or do something radical.
I do agree with you about the sort of general broad brushstroke sympathy for old people. Some old people are fine. Some old people have got plenty of money. Some old people have got plenty of money tied up in the house, which may not be easy for them to pay fuel bills with. There isn't like a one-size-fits-all, and yet obviously means testing sort of feels a little bit, unpleasant and undignified. But given that everything is tightening up across the board, pensioners have been largely protected, haven't they? I think. Yeah. Certainly the ones. I think there's an age cut-off. Is there? I think everyone over 80 continues to get it. Is that right?
Yeah.
And. I don't know.
And pensions were initially, when they were invented, they kept you alive for a few years till you died. Yeah. But now people are living, a lot longer.
Of your life. Absolutely.
So I just want to disagree with Leo on one thing. Not that I'm massively fans of Labour at the moment, but as it has been pointed out, the OBR has basically said that they are now, they've written to Chancellor saying that they're reviewing whether they were misled about the public finances at the last budget. So it seems like Labour weren't given actually all of that information at all. She's come out, and when Jeremy Hunt tried to say exactly this, she said there are very clear instances of specific budgets that were overspent or underfunded promises that were made. So
that certainly seems to be true on the Ukrainian aid.
Well, she says there's a massive 6.4 billion overspend on the asylum system. That is part.
And that's overspend. How much is the spend?
Yeah, but that's overspend in the asylum thing. Rishi wanted to stop. Rishi wanted to reduce the amount of asylum seekers. The Labour were pushing to have more.
But the point is whether they knew about
they can't. It's like lockdown. They're like, the government spent so much in lockdown. It's like you would have spent 10 times as much.
That's a different argument. I'm talking about whether they knew or they.
No, they knew. The OBR is in Labour's pocket, so they're obviously going to.
Okay, but you know what? There are some other things coming up. They're saying that they're not going to increase income tax or national insurance or VAT. That sounds good, but then they're talking about now, we've had this 5p hold on the petrol. That's going to probably go, so that's going to be costing people who drive obviously a lot more money. They're going to find other ways to squeeze
5p a litre, is it?
Yeah, 5p. That's going to probably come back.
I've noticed, I mean, just anecdotally, petrol or diesel in my case going up and down by about 30 pence a litre, just like through price fluctuation. I'm not sure I'd notice if 5p went on it.
Don't tell them that.
Yeah. I'd rather they tax that. Yeah. I mean, none of this. Obviously, they're in a very tight spot, but none of it seems to be remotely encouraging to growth or to anyone to take any kind of risk or invest.
You say that, but I think that it seems like they're trying to just be... Their whole mantra is fiscal responsibility, because the people, arguably, who really run the country are the markets. Yeah. And if it's all about being honest and open and not sort of hitting us with this big bill at the end of the day and deferring it down the road, it's saying, look, we're the grown-ups now, we're in the room, and the idea is to give confidence to the markets. That's who they really care about, not us.
I hope so. I do hope so. We now have the Telegraph, please, Josh.
Yeah, so this is about Israel. Yay, my favourite subject. Britain expected to suspend Israel arms sales. So I voted Labour. Seems like I was an idiot. I really can admit that. There was another horrific attack on children, on Israeli children. Hezbollah drone killed on playing football a few days ago. And the idea now that our country, and who are allies, good allies with Israel, will be stopping export licenses for arms is absolutely disgusting and ridiculous. It's not a huge amount. It's only 0.9% of the total Israel arms that Israel buys from around the world, so it's not huge. And actually, a lot of it is on radar systems. They talk here about parts for F-12s and stuff like that, but actually, it's a lot of radar stuff. Right. But it seems to be just posturing, and it's going to harm us. We actually import more. Israel is one of the leading developers of like cutting-edge weapons around the world.
Yeah, we've seen.
We're going to see. It's going to arguably hurt our capabilities more than hurting
capabilities
Israel.
Or sales.
Well, both, in terms of what, defences, in terms of, Israel's just developed this new laser weapon. But it's more so the message that it sends to the rest of the world to sort of... Their arguments are that Israel has committed war crimes. Israel's fighting a war, and...
There are concerns about their activities in the West Bank, including prior to October last year as well.
Well, yeah, there's always, but they didn't pull the weapons there. But they're also, because they're fighting... Israel's fighting war on loads of fronts. As it looks like Israel's going to be forced to now go to war in Hezbollah, who have lobbed thousands of missiles across the border since October 7th, trying to provoke a war. The idea now that we would be withdrawing our support as a country to our allies...
I think this is a... I mean, if you look 10, 20 years down the line, the way demographic trends are going in the West and the way, the young people are thinking, Israel's support for Israel in the West is going to absolutely dwindle, and in 20 years' time, we'll probably be arming Hamas and Hezbollah.
I think Israel will be fine from America. But that's the front pages dealt with. Coming up, we'll have Puberty blocker bans, Lefty Ecotage and Tommy on the Lam. We'll see you in a couple of minutes.
Good afternoon, Britain. Weekdays from midday.
No one wants their child to be a fussy eater. But what is the secret to expanding your child's culinary horizons?
Is there a way to get kids away from the kids' menu, the fish fingers, the chips? Joining us now is the UK's top-selling author of children's cookery books, Annabelle Carmel. Good morning, Annabelle.
Thank you. So lovely to be here.
So, first of all, what's the issue with kids just having the traditional easy meals like fish fingers, chips, beans?
It really depends if they've got preservatives in them, if they're full of salt. So I like to make them myself, and it's really easy. So I make my own chicken glazed nuggets, and super easy to make using proper pieces of chicken. You can cook them in the air fryer now, which is absolutely brilliant, so you need to fry them. And I think that it's really important that children grow up loving good food, because they make their minds up by the age of 5 what they like and what they don't like, and it's quite difficult to change their minds after that. But it's good to know that fussy eating is genetic. It's not to do with your cooking.
Oh,
that's not to say that you can't do something about it. So I've written many, many books, and I have an app with 1,000 recipes on it and a lot of how to make your own junk food, how to make your own isolis out of fresh fruit.
Yes.
How to make your own pizzas. I make the most amazing homemade pizza. I actually brought you some cookies here.
Okay, so these are your books here. So My First Cookbook, that's for how old children?
That's from the age of 1.
OK, and you've got a weaning one at the end, the baby one?
Yes, that's my very first book. I lost my first child. It was really sad. She died at the age of 3 months. And my second child was the world's worst eater. And I wrote that book as my legacy to Natasha, never thinking that it would start a whole career.
Oh, bless you.
It sold millions of copies and it's so popular.
Is it quite pivotal and important that you introduce kids to the weaning stage, or, you know, how important
It's very important because the processed weaning food in pouches or jars, it's heated, so a lot of the vitamins aren't there anymore, so making your own is so easy and much cheaper.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Tune in to Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan. GB News royalty with your perfect start to the weekend. Lucky us. Feisty and fearless guests.
Well, I'm a normal person, so ask me.
Honest opinions that raises more questions than a Gary Barlow tax return. And a few surprises along the way. Might be cold in this studio. That is Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan. 8 to 9 only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
GB News brings you accurate reporting of the day's topical agenda.
When the news breaks, wherever and whenever it's happening,
we'll be there.
This is GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
I'm Stephen Dixon, and thanks for joining us on GB News, Britain's news channel. And welcome back to Headliners. I'm Simon Evans, everyone's favourite host. With me are Josh Howie, everyone's favourite panellist, and Leo Kearse. So, Leo, you can understand not wanting to go through puberty with the way the country, the state it's in at the moment, but still, good news on the whole, I think.
So, puberty blockers ban imposed by Tory government is lawful. High Court rules, even though a lot of people on the left say it's awful and not lawful. So the Conservative government issued an emergency order on the 29th of May temporarily outlawing the supply of puberty blockers pursuant to an overseas prescription in the wake of the review by Dr. Hilary Cass into gender medicine. So this review, if you haven't heard of it, found that there were very substantial risks when you drug and apply hormones and puberty blockers and whatever to children, and result in sterilisation, cancer, osteoporosis, all kinds of horrible things. And there are very narrow benefits, and also you can't entirely trust the science because the science is conducted by ideologues. So the government, didn't wait for the cogs to work and just applied this emergency order. Don't know why they couldn't do it with other things. But yeah, the Labour government is going to maintain that ban.
Yeah, I think that's good news, and it seems to be getting picked up, I've noticed, by some American campaigners as well. But,
yeah, finally seen some sense.
Yeah.
It must really hurt The Guardian to write this article because they've obviously been part of pushing this ideology over the years. Also, I believe it was a Good Law project that was involved in bringing this case.
They've been absolutely spanked.
Yeah, and they've been spanked repeatedly. I don't think there's a, if they were going to win.
He's got a great knack for fundraising.
He sure does. Killing foxes and fundraising, and a pretty definitive report there from the judge, laying it all out about the. We've seen lots of people who've been captured by this ideology trying to maintain this narrative that Cass report somehow is faulty or whatever, this 400-page, 4-year report by the leading paediatrician in this country, and somehow it's actually rubbish. And it's like, the more that it's examined, the more that we breathe air and light into it, the more that we find out, actually, no, it's all solid stuff. And this is good news.
Finally, I say finally, that's obviously from some previous artefact. In the Mirror, Midley, we get onto the greatest threat to public safety. Public enemy number one, the Devil's documentary maker, Tommy Robinson, has fled the country.
It might be finally, because maybe they'll just cut the show in the middle of the story. We'll see what we say about it. Tommy Robinson flees UK after dodging High Court appearance, prompts urgent arrest warrant. So there was news yesterday that he'd been arrested, and then the police were like, no, we haven't arrested him. Turns out he had been arrested under a Terrorism Act of 2000 because he was trying to leave the country and he wouldn't give across his phone. I believe that's what I read somewhere. Yeah. And because of that allowed them to arrest him, and then they let him free, and then he left the country.
He left. And he wasn't actually... under whatever any kind of legal obligation to stay in the country yet. He wasn't like I think they gave him till October to get his affairs in order before he has to be in court to face some sort of charge. The original charge is him broadcasting this documentary he's made, which is about an hour and a half long. I started watching a bit of it on Twitter. It was kind of, I mean, it was stretched out, I think. I got bored with it. It didn't seem to be terribly controversial. It was mainly about whether or not he had misreported the bullying case.
It might not be controversial to you, but it's controversial to the person who it's about, who is libelous
to both. It's controversial to both parties within it, Josh. Don't get me wrong. I understand that the people involved in it both find it controversial, but I don't think it amounts to terrorism.
No, but the terrorism is because of him leaving the country and not he didn't submit to a search and wouldn't allow him to use the phone.
Yeah,
so that's why
terrorism. I mean, this just seems to be extraordinarily comfortable with the.
If you're arrested at the border, that's what you would get arrested for. That's why it wasn't. These are
sorry, I don't think that.
No,
that's not right.
These are
counter-terror laws aren't used to arrest anybody who doesn't acquiesce to a search. That's absolute nonsense.
This is, I mean,
like Tommy Robinson, for all his fault.
The reason he was originally going to have to go to court was over broadcasting the documentary.
Yeah, that's nothing to do with this arrest.
And the reason he was leaving the country, or they were stopping him, was because he was going to have to go to court. It was something.
No. They weren't stopping him because he had to go.
George,
it was a stop and search that happened, and he wouldn't comply with it.
So
that's why he was stopped.
So Josh, everybody who doesn't acquiesce to stop and search is a terrorist and is prosecuted under the counter-terrorism Act. That's an absolute nonsense.
No, he wasn't prosecuted. He was arrested.
Please don't
take sharp. He wasn't prosecuted. He was arrested. That's the point. That is what they do at the border.
Oh, is that what they do at the border?
Yes.
It seems painfully obvious that we're in a time of this. We've got horrific incidents happening all the time, and the police are focused on getting Tommy Robinson under counter-terror laws instead of maybe prosecuting or keeping an eye out for something that's worse. Is there anything else that's worse that's happened lately?
It's so patently obvious to me that the police could have handled this differently without introducing the word terrorism next to Tommy Robinson for trying to get onto a ferry and not wanting them to look at his phone. I find your attitude to it almost
that's what they would do if you went along and didn't get the phone.
It isn't. It's never ever happened before. How have I never ever heard of something?
Would you ever not give your phone or try to leave
it could be like a stop and search and you're not allowed to leave because you might be in contempt of court because you might not be making yourself available.
I mean, there's a saying in Germany.
Nonsense. He would have to be suspected of terrorism in order for them to say that his refusal to comply with their search led them to plausibly believe. That seems to me fairly basic, right?
Absolutely. I mean, it's pretty clear that there's two-tier policing going on. And, I'm not saying Tommy Robinson is a saint or, justifying any of his actions or anything like that. But, I've seen much worse stuff. I mean, there's a guy who wants to set up an Islamic Sharia caliphate on a Scottish island, and he's allowed to just merely go around fundraising. And it's like, how come Tommy Robinson gets all this focus and all this attention, and other people are allowed to do, worse things? And
I think you should go on a flight tomorrow and see if you can get away with.
Listen, we all saw what happened at Manchester Airport the other day, and those lads were out on bail. There was no mention of terrorism because they kicked off because they just wanted to see the woman's face, their mother's face.
Well,
there was no mention of terrorism there. If you won't comply at an airport.
That was nothing about seeing the mother's face. That was all about an earlier incident. This is about you don't comply with stop and search.
It's the state.
It's not automatically terrorism, Josh. You know you're talking nonsense.
It's the state misapplying laws and rules to persecute somebody.
Ultra-left activist arrested in France, though surprisingly not the ones responsible for the opening ceremony.
So French police arrest ultra-left activist, which in France must be very, very ultra-left, after railway sabotage attacks. So this is after the coordinated sabotage attacks caused chaos and disruption ahead of Friday's Olympic opening ceremony on the railways. There were also, I think it was 80,000 people couldn't travel. There were also attacks on the power network and the telecommunications network. So this has been quite an organised thing, and the unions in France have links or have people that are in the far left, in the Communist Party or whatever. So they also have they're privy to this person, for example, had wire cutters, access keys to the state rail operators' technical premises, a set of universal keys, as well as literature with links to the ultra left. Interestingly, the
ultra left are in power in France.
Well, that's the thing. Is this a message message to Macron to say, like, you know, because they did some finagling to get Le Pen out the way and get the far left in. Have they made a deal with a monster here? And is this a message to Macron saying, if you don't put one of the far left leaders in as prime minister, we're gonna do more of this? And they also say that their justification for it is that the Olympic Games is a celebration of nationalism, a giant staging of the subjugation of populations by states. The Olympics opening ceremony was the opposite of nationalism. It was
This is the weird kind of, I don't know, 2 left feet, isn't it? But anyway, go on.
Yeah, no, he had some far left, ultra left literature, whatever that is. I don't know if that's Jeremy Corbyn's poetry book or whatever. And but yeah, the guy talking about it said the sabotage was deliberate, very precise, and well targeted. This is the traditional mode of the ultra left, i.e., implying that a far right terrorist would more likely just headbutt a lamppost.
Yeah.
So it was like he's sort of
maybe they have a different far right.
He's really like praising the far left, but I hope we don't see.
I've never heard of ultra left.
Ultra left, yeah.
I mean, there's
Le ultra left.
I don't think that they must particularly.
But we don't really want to return to the kind of Badenoff.
I was going to say Baader-Meinhof, yeah, they were
the 70s and all that stuff.
Quite stylish. That's part 2 done. Coming up, Haiti Olympic boxers, yellow cards for sniping, and if you haven't seen the Elgin Marbles yet, now would be a good time. I'll see you in a couple of minutes.
Good evening. Coming to you from the Met Office, here is your latest GB News weather forecast. Whilst tomorrow is looking largely sunny and hotter than today for many of us, we do have a bit of cloud and some rain still across parts of the northwest due to a weak decaying front that is gradually making its way southeastwards. That rain then is going to push its way a little bit further across parts of Scotland and perhaps Northern Ireland before easing and clearing away overnight, and so for many it is going to turn largely dry. There will be some clear skies around, but also a few pockets of mist and fog here and there. In the southeast, I'm expecting it to be a bit warmer than last night, but towards the northwest, it should be a touch fresher, perhaps a little bit more comfortable. If we take a closer look at what we can expect, first thing tomorrow morning then, down the eastern side of Scotland, a bright sunny start here. Further west though, a bit cloudier, and there could still be some lingering showery outbreaks of rain around, though these will largely clear away as we go through the morning. Also a few spots of rain perhaps for the far west of Northern Ireland, and a bit more cloud over far north of England, but for many central southern parts of England and Wales, it is going to be a bright sunny start, and because of the sunshine, any fog and mist patches will quickly clear away. Lots of sunshine then for many of us as we go through tomorrow. Even across Scotland and Northern Ireland, it is going to be brighter and sunnier than today, and like I said, those showery outbreaks of rain will clear through as well. With the sunshine, it's going to feel pretty hot, particularly in the southeast, temperatures getting to highs of around 32 Celsius, which will make it the hottest day of the year so far, a little bit fresher towards the northwest. Looking ahead to Wednesday, and it's another fine day for many of us. We still have some very hot, humid air across us, especially in the southeast, and that does mean there is the risk of some thunderstorms pushing up from the south as we go through Wednesday night and into Thursday. So do watch out for some intense thunderstorms on Thursday, particularly in the south, and then some wetter, fresher weather on Friday. Mark Dolan tonight is your weekend dose of news, debate and entertainment.
This sounds like a wild conspiracy theory.
Don't miss my big opinion. Mark Meets and my take at 10.
Democracy is a funny old thing.
And we don't do boring, not on my watch. I just won't have it.
Go and get another glass of that bubbly, you've earned it.
That's Mark Dolan tonight, Saturday and Sunday, 9 to 11, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Headliners. Leo, lovely footwork from the Telegraph here, mincing around the truth like a world champion featherweight of indeterminate gender.
Yeah, so Olympic boxers are to fight women despite failed testosterone tests. And this isn't like in a pub car park or something. This is it at the Olympic Games. So this is 2 boxers who failed testosterone and gender eligibility tests last year. They've been cleared by the IOC to fight in the women's category. In Paris, it's Algeria's Imani Khalif.
It's very Imani.
They always have names that lure you in, like cast as a man, yeah?
It's going to be hard not to make...
What's the other one called? Tesculitis.
It's going to be hard not to make jokes about this one either. It's Lin Yu Ting is hanging out. But the thing...
I think I've seen that strip show.
The thing is, I'm not sure from this if they're transgender or if they've got differences of sexual development or DSD.
Yeah,
so you get athletes like Caster Semenya.
I've seen a photograph of them. They both look completely unambiguously male.
Right.
Like very, very strongly. Like you wouldn't even think twice if you saw them.
Yeah, I would have sex with them both.
No, they look really, really strongly male. But then so does Caster Semenya. Looks like and she has undescended.
But they are a biological male as well.
Yes, exactly.
So
there is complexity there, so you can understand that. So yeah, it may well be one of those cases. I don't know.
So maybe instead of male and female at the Olympics, we need sort of man-looking and
big jaw,
lady-looking.
Well, I mean, I guess what they have is fine, is testosterone levels, but the IOC have gone, no, they're fine, let them in. I mean, as people have said, because I've seen this stat quite a lot today in this story, 260%. That's the
2.6 times harder men hit punch than women.
Yeah.
It's the biggest.
That's a killer. That's
performance advantage in any
killer.
sport.
Because not only will they not be able to hit each other, equally hard, but they won't have had training of confronting that. They won't have built neck muscles.
They won't have the strength to absorb the punch.
There's an MMA fighter who you see
Fallon Fox.
destroy. But the problem is that the IOC has divorced itself from the IBA, and this is why this is sort of allowed to go through, because the IBA has banned this, but the IOC hasn't, and they're just
so they have no regulations. The IOC.
Well, no, not, and there's actually saying there's not going to be boxing at next year's the next Olympics unless this gets sorted out, unless they
But well, I think the women should withdraw, don't you? I mean, that's
but it's unfair for them. They've been their whole lives they've been training.
But if this is just women with a sort
if they all
genetic,
that would be it.
Maybe they should do 2 for 1, 2 on 1.
But if it's women with a sort of hormonal imbalance, but a naturally occurring hormonal imbalance, isn't that what the Olympics is all about? It's about naturally occurring outliers.
That's to an extent true, yes, an interesting philosophical point. But I suppose, is it a naturally occurring elevated testosterone, or is it a naturally occurring normal level of testosterone for somebody who has testes?
I think they should just go back to the old...
Just like tucked away. That's, I mean, it's difficult, but that's how it is. Right?
I just think they should go back to mud wrestling. That was a great sport.
I knew that you'd be able to make it racist somehow.
What?
Leadership
Don't
race
clip
rules
that.
Leadership race rules of the road for the Tory party hopefuls in the Express now.
Tories threatened with yellow card if they make one move in leadership race. So the point is that there's 6 of them now, I think, who are...
It feels like there's a word missing from that.
Yeah, there's something as if they... they basically, if they diss each other or release bad stuff, do the dark arts, as it's known, to each other, then they are going to be publicly shamed. So it's because the idea is to not sow more division within the Tory party, if that was in any way possible. Kemi Badenoch last week released a Twitter thread of just one day of the attempts that were made to kind of bring her down during that day, people calling it old friends and whatnot. So this is I mean, it's sort of sad that it even needs to be said. That's somewhat indicative of the state of politics. But, of course, the Tories there's a massive rift there.
Yeah. I don't think it's a bad idea, actually. It seems quite sensible to me, because you do see politics only ratchets in one way, doesn't it? It gets nastier and nastier. The campaigning at the moment in America is hilarious. I mean, I'm able to enjoy it from a distance because it's a circus. But it must be kind of... These people must be constantly, I don't know, just feeling like... grubby with it all. Do you know what I mean?
and when it's picking a leader of a party, so you're fighting within the party, so it just makes you look incredibly disunited, and you're going to expose you're going to be sending all these attacks and flaming arrows at each other, and then those flaming arrows and attacks are going to come back and haunt anybody who gets the job, and also you're probably those people are going to be in your cabinet.
You're going to have them in the cabinet because there's only 12 of them in the entire party at the moment. Yeah. Well, let's hope it works. Leo, part 3 of the great betrayal this evening as Labour start browsing extra large bubble wrap in the mail.
So Labour hints at backing for sending Elgin Marbles on long-term loan to Greece as Keir Starmer woos the EU for closer relations. So it's a dispute that's been going on for centuries, and Rishi Sunak and his Greek counterpart clashed bitterly on the issue last year. But Tory former Chancellor George Osborne has been trying to negotiate a deal. He's now chair of the British Museum's Board of Trustees, and Chris Bryant in Labour has praised this plan that would involve the marbles being sent to Greece for a decade, and they would never come back. No. I think we know that.
That would be, I mean, in a way, if you're going to do it, this is probably the best way to do it. I mean, it'll be, you know,
everybody saves space.
Yeah, exactly. I just still don't understand why they can't 3D print some decent copies. They would never.
Well, they've done the scans now, so they have like very precise scans. But this is, as our colleague Lewis Schaefer would say, somewhat of a non-story, because basically all it is built on is Chris Bryant saying that praising by the way, the British Museum are the people who control this. The government has no say anyway.
Right.
But the way that they've tried...
George Osborne, I think, is it?
Yeah, exactly. But the way that they've tried to parlay this into, because it's Keir Starmer trying to woo the EU for close ties. Now, the EU, he may be doing that, but it's got nothing to do with this, and he has no control over it anyway. So it's ridiculous, this kind of stuff.
And we've seen how fond the EU is of Greece anyway. Yeah. The most appalling humiliation they've performed on anyone.
Yeah, so, I think we should flog them on eBay before they get taken off.
Get some money.
I have seen them, by the way. They are lovely to...
Yeah, I went to see them.
Yeah, go and have a look this weekend. The Sun next. Everybody's favourite soy-based hive mind organism, Just Stop Oil, have tried to disrupt service at Gatwick Airport, but they turn out to be not that much of a barrier.
Moment, Just Stop Oil, eco-idiots blocking Gatwick Airport departure gates have foiled, as passengers to basically walk over them. And if you've seen the footage, they literally just sort of step over them. These guys are pathetic. I don't know if any were kicked in the head. I don't know if you'd need to see the context.
They're using the same tactics that they use in front of motor vehicles, where of course you are...
you're lying there, but they don't realise that human beings have a little bit more dexterity. Well, I don't understand how they managed to drive over me with their legs.
Still, they got themselves in the paper. I mean, I suppose they didn't want to let the whole... Because, they've lost 4 of their bravest, strongest soldiers.
5. They might have just been protesting Ryanair luggage restrictions.
How come they're not arrested for terrorism?
Yes,
they should be. Terrorist Act of 2020.
Yeah, well, they could be. I mean, I think that's fair enough. But they don't stop anything anymore. Anyway, Leo, everyone's favourite lawyer, Ahmed Yaqub, who we were mentioning earlier, is pulling the old reverse ferret on the Manchester airport. FAFO.
So this is in The Guardian. The lawyer for the family at the centre of the Manchester airport brawl has said he's stepping aside as investigations into the incident gather pace. So he became the lawyer for the 2 men that are involved in it. One of them was kicked in the head. He's known as the Lamborghini lawyer. I looked at his YouTube channel. It's amazing. I've got a lot. He's honestly like a character out of a show. I've got a lot of affection for him. But obviously, he swooped in there, thought he was going to get a lot of attention, possibly, win a big compensation case, and then it turns out, the lads, there's new footage came out.
Referring to it as an assassination attempt. To be fair, it did involve an ear.
And not just them. He said another relative works with the police. Apparently, a few of them work with the police, but one of them works with the police and couldn't go into work because they were afraid of being assassinated by the police. And it's like you're in Britain. You're not in I don't know,
even continental Europe. These are armed regularly. I mean, maybe if the police were more armed, they wouldn't get punched on the nose quite so frequently.
I love how The Guardian here says teenager's lawyer. That teenager throws a mean right hook.
God, teens.
Those
teens.
Teens today.
That is the end of part 3. Coming up in the final section, we've got fatties and sexism and some stories as well. We'll see you in a couple of minutes.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm joined now by Stefan Kyriasis to give us the latest on everything theatre.
So, yeah, we're going in first with Starlight Express, which is back. It's not in the West End. It's out at Wembley at the Troubadour Theatre, which is a big, almost kind of warehouse space, which suits because, as you know, have you seen the show?
Starlight Express was my first ever musical. I must have been about 7 or 8 years old. I only saw it once, but I remember it being magical.
Well, this one, it's 1984 it started, and it's still running in Bochum in Germany in a huge arena. So basically what we've got, they've slightly tweaked it, and there's a little boy or little girl, depending on the cast, going to bed, obsessed with toy trains and dreaming of trains. Everybody is dressed up. To me, it looks like a cross between Tron and Priscilla, Queen of the Desert. I don't really think any of them look remotely like a train, but hey, the songs are Andrew Lloyd Webber. It's pop mixed with kind of cod 1950s rock and roll, some power ballads. The lyrics are politely like something out of an old speak and spell machine or something. You know, he's a steam train, they're out of date, he's being bullied by the diesel and the electric, and he falls for this carriage, the first-class carriage, New Girl Pearl, and he wants to impress us, who enters a race, and that's pretty much it. And when the races happen, all these barriers come up around where we're sitting, the lights are flashing, the music's thumping. It's utterly ridiculous, and I felt like a kind of teenager that was huffing sherbet dib-dabs off a giant block of sugar. It's so much fun, and the really crucial thing about it all is that somehow, in the middle of all of that, I just felt myself getting into the story. And when Pearl and Rusty have their little duet, I was very moved, and there's this big starlight sequence, which is the inspiration, the magical starlight that he's seeking. It's beautiful.
GB News, the People's Channel. Weekdays on GB News. Wake up to breakfast every day from 6 a.m. Followed by Britain's newsroom at 9:30. At noon, it's Good Afternoon Britain. Followed by Martin Daubney from 3 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Okoye, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
It's true. You're not wrong. No one will be cancelled. Lovely.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Neil Oliver, every Sunday night at 6 p.m. on GB News. And if an hour is not nearly enough for you, go to gbnews.com for special extended episodes online every Friday at 9 p.m, where we can truly get into the nitty-gritty of what's going on.
GB News, Britain's news channel.
And welcome back to Headliners. So we jump back in with the Daily Mail and a television pundit being fired for a sexist joke. Not the worst sort of firing of it late, but Josh, you mentioned you might have an even more sexist one on you'd like to share.
Oh, I got loads of sexist jokes. Yeah.
Wheel them out.
I did the mud wrestling.
We've got an extra couple of minutes.
Before. Yeah, no, I'll get to it. Yeah. I have plenty of people walking out.
I haven't actually seen this guy before.
No, I haven't. I don't know. I'm not really into Bob Ballard. So, yeah, cancelled the Olympics for sexist joke. Bob Ballard's decades-long career at BBC and Eurosport, strong commentator, and he's gay, by the way. So he should really be allowed to joke about whatever he wants. Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, if he was trans, totally. Gay is kind of 50-50.
But basically, it seems like this is what he said. I don't really even understand it. It's not really a joke.
Women to get
he said, "Oh, you know what women are like, hanging around doing their makeup." How can you get fired for that? It's true.
It's 2024.
Well, before they swim, I guess, so maybe they don't wear makeup. But it feels
they should wear makeup, and they should leave streams in the pool
Frankie Boyle's
as
material.
they go. Yeah.
I kind of feel it's about as mild as a joke can be before it ceases to be a joke.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. And it's like, you've obviously watched my set.
And it's nothing. I mean, it's like the most sort of offhand, inoffensive comment.
It'd be like going, oh, you know what, blokes are like talking about their cars or something.
Yeah.
It's about that.
Are we not allowed to say that women wear makeup? Women,
and it takes some of them a long time.
A lot of women do. Yeah, and women then complain about how long it takes to put makeup on. It's like, do you know how long it would take me to improve my level of attractiveness like that? I'd have to study to be a doctor. You know what I mean? It would take me like 12 years.
Do you never let your wife drive and then sort of like do a little bit of grooming in the fold-down mirror?
No, well, my wife can't drive. So.
You don't know.
One of our great
no. Walks behind.
Well, we
Yeah.
feel sorry for Bob Ballard. I've never even seen him. I don't know who he is. Is he a swimming commentator? I mean, I don't watch much swimming. There's not much to commentate on. Oh, and here comes number 7.
You wouldn't think Eurosport is like the most kind of woke of channels or whatever.
I saw their other show, Eurotrash, and it wasn't woke at all.
It seems, it's a shame that it's mild beyond.
Maybe he's been offered, voluntary redundancy and the timing's good. We stick with the mail, and athletes are leaving the Olympic Village for French hotels, raising the question, who will win gold in the 200-mile freestyle bed bug bite scratch-a-thon?
Yeah. So how the woke 2024 Paris Olympic Village is so woke is ending any world record hopes after Coco Gauff revealed her entire team left for a hotel. So this is the USA tennis star Coco Gauff or Goff.
I've done a few. Coco Gauff feels like that's a very particular type of digestive issue, doesn't it?
Needs a little puff of powder.
There's all kinds of nastiness we could impart.
How did she blow the balls back over the net?
Made to fart and follow through.
So she's for the Olympics. They've built a $1.6 billion facility for the athletes, but they have to the athletes are forced to share a bathroom with 10 other athletes who are all doing Coco Gauffs as well, and they're trying to make the Olympics sustainable, but that means they don't have air conditioning. The food's terrible. It's all 60% vegans. They're not getting enough proteins. They're not getting the opportunity to break records because they all feel terrible and not getting the right food.
Have they really not got aircon? I mean, the rest of it.
No aircon.
That's bad.
No, but also if you have 10 women sharing a bathroom, that is why they were late. So it wasn't a joke.
Yeah.
For the previous story.
In fact, if anything, he was trying to steer attention away from the net zero.
Trying to help them out.
Yeah.
But having 60% of their food being vegan is ridiculous. Like, what do you not know about athletes? They need meat and eggs.
Well, they
and
need
protein.
choice at least.
But all they basically all of that food just went straight out the door, and then they just had no food for any of the people.
One big Coco Gauff, and that was it.
Yeah. Particularly bad for Coco Puff. But but it's people have been training for years for this, and then suddenly they get there. So a lot of them are moving out to hotels. It's a huge waste of money. Also, there's no they have to get sort of public transport.
Well, also, I mean, I've stayed in a French hotel. I did get bed bugs. Well, that was actually Belgian, to be honest. But absolute nightmare. But also, their breakfasts are awful. They're not an athlete's breakfast.
Gauloise and an espresso.
Sort of a limp bit of cheese. They should come and stay in English Travel Lodge. Onto the Daily Star. Actually, Wetherspoons need a branch in Paris. They were talking about that. That could have been their opening.
The Wetherspoons.
Daily Star. Fat influencers. Has this gone too far? Well, presumably not on foot.
Yeah, well, yes. So fat influencers have gone too far. Chilling eating videos posted before early deaths. This is a whole subgenre. I'm not really. I don't really.
No.
I haven't watched them myself. But what we have seen over the last, should we say, 10 years or so, is this kind of body positivity march, People, be proud of yourselves, girls and boys, with your big... Yeah, exactly. But, of course, now what's happening is, surprise, surprise, they're all dying super young, like in their 30s.
Yeah.
You cannot be that large and not have a big
metabolic
physical
disorders
on you. You will die.
It's said that it kills as many people now as smoking, and it's obviously vastly more of a problem than famine or thinness or whatever.
Yeah, anorexia and whatever.
Yeah. I am baffled by it, and I thought it might be a craze for a month or two or a season, that Nike would have hugely overweight people in their gear as inclusivity, but it seems to have stuck, doesn't it? The Paris opening ceremony, all stuff about the Last Supper to one side, which very possibly it wasn't intended to be that, might have been intended to be a bacchanalian. But it was a grotesque display of very unhealthy bodies to open a ceremony which is all about the unapologetic, desire to be the fittest that you can be, right?
Yeah, and it's the symptom of a sick society where we're seeing people and it's the identifying. We've told people, you can identify as whatever gender, you can identify as a light bulb or a cat or whatever. Yeah. So fat people genuinely say, I identify as healthy. Yeah. And it's like that. The cholesterol doesn't identify you as healthy. No. You can't identify your way out of some things.
It's horrific. Have you ever seen one of those diagrams where you see somebody who's like 30 or 40 stone and then within it you see a sort of cut where you wear the skeleton and you just go, oh my God. Because otherwise you sort of assume the whole thing has expanded. But it hasn't. They are a regular person with just huge...
Well, it's like that film, it's like Wall-E.
Yeah,
This is the future, and it is a problem because we are massively unfit. We are getting fatter. It is costing the NHS and our taxpayers billions of pounds, and we do have to take some sort of measures as a society to deal with it. And it's about unprocessed
We need to bring back
it.
Well,
bring back bullion.
Okay,
The Guardian now, Leo, and dying early we're still on the same subject, can cause others to age at an accelerated rate. So I guess it all sort of evens out in a way. Is that right? No.
No, well, bereavement in early life may accelerate ageing, according to research. I mean, because you're already dead. But it says here the stress of bereavement may accelerate the ageing process, according to researchers who found evidence that losing a loved one, such as a parent or sibling, early in life had an impact long before people reach middle age. So those people have epigenetic markers for...
This is not if you are widowed. This is sort of a close family.
This is a close family. So this is a self-selecting sample of people who have people around them who die and their family who die. And obviously, if you have people who die before they're old in your family, there's a chance that you've got their genes. So this is they're saying, oh, there's genetic markers that they're not as healthy. It's just, obviously.
I don't know. I think it does add some sort of stress. As it says here, they had 4,000 people. 40% had lost a loved one by adulthood, and they were found to have significantly older biological ages. I mean, you're right. There could be a chicken and the egg thing going on, but let's not underplay the impact that grief can have on the system. Certainly in someone's development, the trauma.
I will say this, though. I've known a number of women in their 50s who are widowed and thrive thereafter. Thrive, absolutely.
Oh, really? They blossomed, have they?
Yeah.
On your block?
Yeah. Finally, the Mail. Very quickly, you've got 30 seconds on this, Josh. The most hated media sites.
Yes, most hated media sites around the world, social media, Facebook, essentially. And weirdly, in South America, most of all. They really hate Facebook in South America.
Interesting.
And TikTok being the most popular.
It's interesting, isn't it? Meta is in trouble. It lost a lot of its share prices. It's mainly invested now in servers and the cloud and so on. But I think Facebook is on the way out. Good news. The show is nearly over. Let's take another quick look at Tuesday's front pages. The Daily Telegraph. Knife man kills 2 children in holiday club horror. The Times. Knife attack on children was like a horror movie. The Daily Mail, 2 children dead in holiday club carnage. The Guardian, 2 children dead and 9 injured in ferocious attack at dance class. The Metro, TV Hugh, kid porn charge. And the Daily Star, carnage at the kids' club. That's it for tonight's show. Thank you very much to Josh and Leo. Headliners is back tomorrow at 11 p.m. I will be hosting. Who will be on it, we do not know. But if you've been watching at 5 a.m, stay tuned for breakfast. Otherwise, thank you very much for your company this splendid evening. I wish you a warm and pleasant evening, and I'll see you tomorrow. Thank you. Good night.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good evening. Coming to you from the Met Office, here is your latest GB News weather forecast. Whilst tomorrow is looking largely sunny and hotter than today for many of us, we do have a bit of cloud and some rain still across parts of the northwest due to a weak decaying front that is gradually making its way southeastwards. That rain then is going to push its way a little bit further across parts of Scotland and perhaps Northern Ireland before easing and clearing away overnight, and so for many it is going to turn largely dry. There will be some clear skies around, but also a few pockets of mist and fog here and there. In the southeast, I'm expecting it to be a bit warmer than last night, but towards the northwest, it should be a touch fresher, perhaps a little bit more comfortable. If we take a closer look at what we can expect first thing tomorrow morning, then down the eastern side of Scotland, a bright sunny start here. Further west, though, a bit cloudier, and there could still be some lingering showery outbreaks of rain around, though these will largely clear away as we go through the morning. Also, a few spots of rain perhaps for the far west of Northern Ireland, and a bit more cloud over far north of England. But for many central southern parts of England and Wales, it is going to be a bright sunny start. And because of the sunshine, any fog and mist patches will quickly clear away. Lots of sunshine then for many of us as we go through tomorrow. Even across Scotland and Northern Ireland, it is going to be brighter and sunnier than today, and like I said, those showery outbreaks of rain will clear through as well. With the sunshine, it's going to feel pretty hot, particularly in the southeast, temperatures getting to highs of around 32 Celsius, which will make it the hottest day of the year so far, a little bit fresher towards the northwest. Looking ahead to Wednesday, and it's another fine day for many of us. We still have some very hot, humid air across us, especially in the southeast, and that does mean there is the risk of some thunderstorms pushing up from the south as we go through Wednesday night and into Thursday. So do watch out for some intense thunderstorms on Thursday, particularly in the south, and then some wetter, fresher weather on Friday.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
You really could become the next big Great British Giveaway winner with your chance to win £30,000 in tax-free cash to spend on anything you like. Listen to what some of our previous winners have to say about winning big with us.
On the day that I got the money in the bank account, everything just seemed a lot sunnier.
But I do have something to spend it on.
Just go for it. It's an absolute must.
Thank you, GBNews.
Amazing feeling to win.
For another chance to win £30,000 in tax-free cash, text cash to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2 or post your name and number to GB07 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 30th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Tune in to Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan. GB News royalty with your perfect start to the weekend. Lucky us! Feisty and fearless guests.
Well, I'm a normal person, so ask me.
Honest opinions.
That raises more questions than a Gary Barlow tax return.
And a few surprises along the way.
Might be cold in this studio.
That is Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan. 8 to 9 only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
GB News brings you accurate reporting of the day's topical agenda.
When the news breaks, wherever and whenever it's happening,
we'll be there.
This is GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
And my heartfelt condolences to them. Our specialist family liaison officers are providing support to the families of the deceased children and the children who are injured at this moment in time. And we'll be working with our partners, including Sefton Council, to provide that wider trauma support to those who've been affected by this incident. The investigation is in its early stages and the motivation for the incident remains unclear. However, Counter-Terrorism Police North West have offered their support to Merseyside Police as the full circumstances of what has happened are being established. At this moment in time, the investigation is not being treated as terrorist-related. I would appeal to anyone who's witnessed anything or who has information that could help us, the investigation, to contact us on Crime Stoppers 0800 555 111. And anyone who's been affected by this incident can contact Victim Care Merseyside Service for help and support. Our hub of locally trained staff are here to provide free and emotional support and practical tailored advice to you. You can contact the Victim Care Hub Merseyside on 0808 175 3080. Thank you.
My name is Dave Kitchen, and on behalf of North West Ambulance Service, we'd like to offer our sincere condolences to those families who tragically lost loved ones today, and to the wider community. Our thoughts are with you. I can confirm that we were called to the Hart Street area in Southport just before lunchtime today to an incident of reported multiple stabbings. We declared this as a major incident due to the number of casualties and the types of the injuries sustained. A substantial number of ambulances and specialised resources were dispatched to the scene, including our hazardous area response team, air ambulances and merit doctors. Tragically, we can confirm that 2 lives have sadly been cut short. We treated 11 casualties on scene, who were conveyed by emergency ambulance and helimed to Alder Hay Hospital, Royal Manchester Children's Hospital, along with Aintree University, Southport Formby and Ormskirk General Hospitals. I'd like to thank our staff who worked incredibly hard, caring for the victims in what was a devastating scene. I'd also like to thank our Blue Light and emergency colleagues from the NHS and the wider NHS for all their support during this incident. And again, we'd like to express our deepest sympathies to the loved ones of those affected. No doubt this incident will have a lasting impact on the whole community, and our thoughts are very much with them at this difficult time.
Phil Garrigan, Chief Fire Officer for Merseyside Fire and Rescue Service. And my colleagues, I would like to pass on my thoughts and those of my service to the family, friends and loved ones of everyone affected by this horrific incident. This is not something that anyone should have to come to terms with. In relation to the incident itself, my firefighters responded following the declaration of a major incident and were on the scene in minutes. With crews from Southport Fire Station and a specialist team from Aintree responding to assist our colleagues from Merseyside Police and North West Ambulance Service, who were dealing with a traumatic and understandably chaotic scene. The crews, who were trauma trained, worked alongside their colleagues to provide trauma care, administer first aid and undertake a wide area search for any other persons affected by this incident. My firefighters, many of whom live in this community, will be appalled by this act, but they will be back on the streets of Southport tomorrow to provide reassurance, kindness and support. The crews themselves were stood down at 4:18 p.m. this afternoon.
Okay. Good evening, I'm Martin Dorby. This is GBN Tonight. That was a press conference there in Southport. That was Chief Constable Serena Kennedy open proceedings confirming a 17-year-old living in Banks, originally from Cardiff, had been detained for murder and attempted murder. She sadly confirmed that 2 children have been killed in this incident and 11 other casualties on site. She described the attack as ferocious, a ferocious attack on children. We believe adults injured were bravely trying to protect those children. She then went on to say, as a mum and a nana, I cannot imagine the grief and the trauma they are going through. She went on to try to explore some potential motive, and she said counter-terror police are offering their support, but at present this is not being treated as a terror-related incident. We then heard from a paramedic who gave a statement saying this incident will have a lasting impact on this area, and then a firefighter representative who described the scene as traumatic, chaotic, but then added, my team will be back on the streets of Southport tomorrow offering wider help to the community. Just to repeat, it was at a Taylor Swift yoga event at a premises in the area. The children impacted were year 2 to 6, primary school children aged between 6 and 11, and yeah, 2 died. 2 children have died. This is on taking care of kids at what would have been a very ordinary kind of summer camp. You know, millions of children go to these parents across the UK, put their kids into these events, of course, to take care of them while they have to work, and today with tragic consequences in Southport. And let's cross now to the scene. GBNews' reporter Will Hollis joins us from the scene in Southport. Will, we just heard from Chief Constable Serena Kennedy of Merseyside Police giving us some details onto the individual detained and the tragic news, Will Hollis, that 2 children confirmed as dead at this tragic mass stabbing today at Southport. Will Hollis, give us more.
And Fire and Rescue were the first...
Yes, well, journalists here just on Hart Street were listening along to that press conference at the same time as you, Martin, and as the same time as viewers at home, and people just kind of sank when they heard that 2 dead, 9 others injured, and 6 people in a critical condition. We heard earlier that people had been taken to 3 hospitals, and some of them were taken to a children-specific hospital, Alder Hay, but now we have had it confirmed there by the police as well as the ambulance service that 2 children have died after this horrific knife attack here in Southport. Southport known as being a famous seaside town on bright sunny days like today, but something much darker. Just to go through a little bit of what we just heard there from Serena Kennedy, she said that children who were inside of a Taylor Swift dance class were subjected to a ferocious attack, that adults who were injured were bravely trying to protect their children, and this is still very much in the early stages of their investigation, and that motivations remain unclear. Police have arrested a 17-year-old, and they say that they're not looking for anybody else in connection to this, but one of the things that they have made clear is that they don't think that this is terror-related, as well as hearing that 2 children have died. We heard from Dave Kitchen, who's from the North West Ambulance Service, that this is going to have a lasting impact on the community. Whenever there is an event of this sort of a scale, it really cuts to the core of a community when it's children involved, and as we hear now, some are critical, but 2 have died. It gets to the heart of the community in a way that very few other news stories do. We're about 300 metres away from Hart Street, where this knife attack took place about, almost 8 hours ago. Now, earlier today, about 10 to 12, that police were called here, and it was a horrific scene of devastation. Children being pulled out of the house. Now we know, from the press release that the press conference that we just heard, that it was certainly children who were attacked with knives, and at least 2 of them have died. Today, from where we've been watching, you could see that the forensics teams have been going in and out. We're quite a far way away, so we haven't really been able to see what they were doing specifically, but we know that this is very much in the early stages of the investigation. A person has been arrested, a 17-year-old, and they're trying to figure out now what the motivations were for somebody to do such an awful thing.
And Will, keen to point out that the individual, the 17-year-old, originally from Cardiff. So I guess at this point the search for information will broaden out to that area as well. But a huge amount of testimony has been pouring out throughout the day, Will Hollis, from locals in the area. Some heartbreaking testimonies. Of one was of a gentleman who ran into the streets upon hearing the screams, and he took 10 children into his home to protect them. Another was from a nurse who said that she heard screams and somebody was saying, "My girl, my girl, my girl." Such an incredibly traumatic event for the community. Have you been speaking to anybody on the ground there, Will, any locals, or are people just kind of hunkering down? They're staggered, they're stunned, they're just in their homes trying to make sense of this?
At any time soon, you can see from the barriers that have been put
Yes, well, this is what seems to be quite a nice residential area. It's only probably a 10-minute walk to the seafront, and a lot of the people here have been coming down. If you were to see what was behind us, there's groups of young people, teenagers on bikes. There's what appears to be a vicar just on the side, a local community leader. People have been coming down quite slowly, quite quietly and cautiously, occasionally maybe speaking to a journalist, but they know what's been happening because they've been hearing it in the community. They know what's been happening because they've been hearing it from some of the journalists that are working down here. And I suppose the only word that we can give really is that they're shocked and upset that this has happened in their community, a quiet, sleepy part of a fairly sleepy part of the country. Southport gets a lot of visitors here, but in this part it's fairly quiet, fairly nice neighbourhood, and it's unexpected as well. And that's what seems to be worrying people here. Why has this happened? But police are saying that it is unclear right now, and they're trying to find out what the motivations were.
And Will, again, we heard some testimony from a supermarket worker who they were closing down all the shops on the high street when this incident emerged was happening, and shop owners donating food, donating water to local families in this darkest hour, this unimaginable horror. 2 children dead, 11 injured, 6 critical. Chief Constable Serena Kennedy there pointing out that adults who were present, presumably their carers, God bless them, stepped in to try and save the children.
While 2 adults who have been treated at other hospitals.
Yes, but described as adults injured, bravely trying to protect their children. It's unimaginable, isn't it, that somebody would want to do this? But seeing it and being there while that is happening, a dance class at the start of the summer holidays, something that is so unbelievably normal, nobody would bat an eye, but something so unbelievably abnormal happening here today at a place where children should be safe, should be able to enjoy the start of the summer holidays, turned into one of the most horrific things that we've probably spoken about in the news for quite some weeks or quite some months even. 9 people still in a difficult situation. 9 people that have been injured, 6 of them in a critical condition, 2 of those children dead now. That was just announced a few moments ago at the press conference. We know because of the type of thing that it was, a Taylor Swift dance session, that most of these children are probably girls, and that makes it, you know, it sets a picture up. We're 300 metres away from where this happened. There's only so many things that you can see when we're reporting this kind of a thing, even on social media, but the picture in what I imagine is most people's eyes and minds is very clear for what has happened, and it's not a pretty picture. It's not nice at all.
OK, Will Hollis there, live from Southport. Thank you very much for joining us and giving that full update. And I'm joined now by retired Scotland Yard Detective Inspector Hamish Brown. Hamish, welcome to the show. Sadly, it's under such tragic circumstances. Could I talk to you now, Hamish, about what must be the beginnings of an incredibly complicated, incredibly in-depth police operation? Mercifully, the individual has been arrested, detained on murder charge and a suspected murder charge. The details that were given were perfunctory, 17-year-old, living in the Banks area, approximately 15 minutes away from the scene of this tragic mass stabbing, originally from Cardiff. What happens next in terms of trying to piece together the motive, the reason for such an unconscionable act? What happens next, Hamish Brown?
Well, Martin, first of all, look, I've dealt with many tragedies as a police officer, and actually since retirement, working with coroners and other people. And there's people like me and police officers who've got to be dispassionate about this, but it can't. I've got to say this is tragic. This is awful. My heart and everyone's heart goes out to everyone in Southport. But if I can turn now, and that's important to say that, but if I can turn now to deal with your question, what happens now? And indeed, it was your colleague just now who spoke about why. Why did this happen? Goodness me. Well, someone has been arrested, you said mercifully. Yes, I'm pleased about that. And the knife, which I understand is the weapon, has also been seized as well. Well, there's a lot of work for the police to do. They've got to deal with this as a murder investigation. There'll be witnesses, there'll be forensic evidence, medical evidence, and tragically other evidence because people have died. So they will piece that together. They'll be looking at CCTV, witnesses outside. But I think crucially, the background, a 17-year-old, what on earth is going on? And they've eliminated, as I understand it, a terrorist approach. So maybe his house will be searched. They'll have powers under the Police and Criminal Evidence Act, as it's a serious arrest offence, to search his house. They will delve into his background. It's already been said the gentleman's from Cardiff, so maybe they've got some information about him anyway. And ultimately, they'll have to find out what's he about, you know, and this will be both medical and psychiatric considerations as well. I don't know. We'll just have to wait and see. And I've got to reiterate the tragedy for this lovely community. And I've been to Southport, a lovely place, and no one deserves this at all. It was a yoga class or something like that for young people.
Hamish, can I please interject and ask you a specific question on policing? Because a lot of people are asking, how can it be dismissed as an incident that wasn't a terrorist incident? Yet at the same time, Chief Constable Serena Kennedy just said in that police statement that counter-terror police are offering their support. Why are they offering their support if it's not a terrorist incident? Would you mind clearing that up for us, please?
Well, quite clearly, the initial investigation will assume it is, or have come up with it is not, but at the same time, they will delve into the accused background and is there something there that will throw up some connection, some reason to answer that most crucial question, why? And of course, it's other resources which the police will desperately want because they have a huge amount of work to put their case together. The accused is 17, so he'll be entitled to what's known as an appropriate adult. He'll be questioned in due course. Unquestionably, he will have legal representation, and there may be other representations they're going to make. I don't know, perhaps
Hamish, can I also interject? Can I also please interject and quickly ask you a key question? And that is, if this individual is 17, does that mean that we're unlikely to know their identity? Will they be protected by the courts for anonymity?
Yes, that's a very good question. And indeed, you're protected by the courts, and it will be open to the trial judge at some stage to say it's in the public interest that this individual should be identified.
OK, thank you very much for joining us. Retired Scotland Yard Detective Inspector Hamish Brown. Now, the Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer, spoke on the incident moments ago.
The events today are just truly awful. And I know the whole country is deeply shocked at what they've seen and what they've heard. And I know I speak for everybody in the whole country in saying our thoughts and condolences with the victims, their families, their friends and the wider community. And it's almost impossible to imagine the grief that they're going through and the trauma that they're going through. I do want to thank the emergency services of Merseyside Police who've had to respond to the most difficult of circumstances today.
People across the country will be horrified that something so unthinkably violent could happen. What's your message to them tonight?
I think my message is really to convey what they would want me to convey, which is their thoughts and condolences to the families in particular. It is impossible to imagine what they are going through right now. The wider community, the friends, and of course the victims who've got terrible injuries. So I think everybody would want to send those thoughts and condolences. But I do also think about the emergency responders, because they have responded to an awful incident today, and I want to thank them for the professionalism that they have shown in doing so.
On the tragic incident, dark day in Southport today, 2 children left dead in a mass stabbing. Now, up next, we'll discuss Rachel Reeves' economic statement. What does it mean for you? We'll find out next. Don't go away. If you want your news to be straight talking, this is a nightmare for the Conservatives again. Down to earth. It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it? And most importantly, honest. Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them. They catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Patrick Christie's. Every weeknight from 9, I bring you 2 hours of unmissable, explosive debate and headline-grabbing interviews. What impact has that had?
We got death threats and the bomb threat and so on.
As time passes,
She could have said Storm.
you made my argument for me.
My guests and I tackle the issues that really matter with a sharp take on every story.
It went everywhere.
Something practical could be done.
I can become something different. Patrick Christie's tonight from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Nana Acquia. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, and as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/your-say. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Your lunchtime update on the stories that matter across the UK.
From breaking news and insightful analysis, inspiring stories and lively debates. You're comparing yourself to a former Prime Minister.
Which is it? Stay informed, stay updated, stay entertained.
I just don't know how anyone would not want to be there.
Every weekday from midday.
We are Good Afternoon Britain, only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Join me, Neil Oliver, every Sunday night at 6 p.m. on GB News. And if an hour is not nearly enough for you, go to gbnews.com for special extended episodes online every Friday at 9 p.m, where we can truly get into the nitty-gritty of what's going on. GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to the show. This is GBN Tonight with me, Martin Daubney. Now, earlier today, Chancellor Rachel Reeves painted quite a depressing picture of the UK's economics in the Commons. She told how there was a £22 billion black hole this year, whilst announcing £5.5 billion of savings this year on top. And she cancelled a number of Conservative transport policies, Boris Johnson's new hospital push, whilst cashing in on the ending of the Rwanda scheme. Now, take a listen to her laying into the Tories earlier on today in the Commons.
We've inherited a projected overspend of £22 billion. A £22 billion hole in the public finances now. Not in the future, but now. £22 billion of spending this year that was covered up by the party opposite.
Well, a somewhat punch-drunk Shadow Chancellor Jeremy Hunt responded to Rachel Reeves' accusations, saying she was laying the groundwork for tax rises.
She will fool absolutely no one with a shameless attempt to lay the grounds for tax rises she didn't have the courage to tell us about. In fact, since January, in line with constitutional convention, she has had privileged access to the Treasury Permanent Secretary. she could find out absolutely anything she needed. Today's exercise is not economic, it's political.
Well, loads to get our teeth into there. Let's get started. I'm joined by Exchequer Secretary to the Treasury and Labour MP James Murray. Also with me is Mark Littlewood, Director of the Popular Conservatives, and Dr Jeevan Sander, Labour MP for Loughborough and economist. Why don't we start with you, James Murray? So, Mr Hunt was having none of it. He said that Rachel Reeves will fool absolutely no one by blaming us for tax rises. These £20 billion black hole hasn't magically appeared. This isn't economic. This is political. He also added, working families will never forgive her for this. What's your take?
I think working families will never forgive the Conservatives for what they did to the economy. And we got into office. We knew that we were going to inherit an incredibly difficult set of fiscal circumstances. But then when the Chancellor took office, she asked the Treasury to do an audit of exactly what our inheritance was. And it's now shown there is a £22 billion black hole this year. In year, you know, this is not money further down the line that needs to be found. This is money that is being spent this year by the government. You know, it's absolutely outrageous that the government let this happen without telling anyone. You know, they covered it up by not being straight with the OBR, not being straight with the British public, talking about this in the election campaign. And we're now in a situation where we are in office and we will fix it. And that's the process the Chancellor began today, saying, look, it's a mess. Let's be straight with the British people. It's a real mess. There are going to be some difficult decisions, but we will fix it.
I was quite surprised, James Murray, by the fact she seemed to channel her inner George Osborne. We had quite a tranche of austerity measures scrapping hospitals. Plans to build hospitals. Who'd have thought the Labour Party scrapping hospital plans, HS2, roads, lots of cutbacks, and yet the magic money tree seemed to spring into life. There will be a 22% pay cut for junior doctors. There will be a 5.5% pay cut likely for public sector workers. It seems it's a terrible time unless you're a public sector worker.
Well, look, it's a terrible time for people right across the country, given the economic inheritance that we've had from the previous government. But what the Chancellor set out today is her first step in the process to bringing economic stability back to the British economy. You know, we know that if you don't have economic stability, you can't get the economy growing. And economic growth is the way that we will make people across Britain better off and get our public services back on a sustainable footing. So making sure we rein in the public finances after this mess we've inherited, getting economic stability back at the heart of government is absolutely crucial to what we want to do.
A lot of people are saying this is the prawn cocktail before a buffet of tax rises coming in the autumn statement. A day before Halloween, October the 30th, astonished today about the winter fuel allowance being pulled away from pensioners. That's the sort of Maggie Thatcher milk snatcher approach.
Well, I want to be really honest with you and say that that decision about the winter fuel payment was a really difficult one. You know, it's not one any of us wanted to take. It's not one the Chancellor was expecting to take coming into office. But having sound finances, being fiscally responsible, having economic stability is not an optional extra for us. It's at the heart of what we want to do in government. And that's why we're having to take difficult decisions. And as I said, you know, this is not going to be the last difficult decision we're going to have to take to get the public finances back under control.
Great. Well, let's bring in my panel now. Why don't we start with you, Mark Littlewood? I heard you sort of scoffing away in the background there. Do you think the public will buy this idea that the country's in a terrible mess and it's all because of the Conservatives and the Labour Party didn't see this coming and it was a huge cover-up by the Tories?
Look, it's a really interesting question, Martin. I also want to be fair to the new government because I wish them well, even though I'm a member of the Conservative Party. But this is utterly preposterous. Rachel Reeves is arguing that £1 has been lost down the back of the sofa when the country is £7 trillion in debt, if you add up our national debt and all our national liabilities. This is a trivial rounding issue, actually, 20 billion or so. I mean, if she genuinely thinks the Conservatives have lied about it, she should name the people who have done. But it's cents on the dollar. There is a colossal overspend by the public sector. There has been for 25 years. There's not been a balanced budget since 2001. The state is spending well beyond the means of taxpayers, and there needs to be a massive consolidation in public spending. You can argue where it should be. Which are we going to cut? Is it going to be the triple lock pension? Is it going to be the NHS? Is it going to be defence spending? But politicians of all stripes need to be honest that public spending has got out of control. And 20 billion is a rounding error on this. We are going to have to cut by 100 billion or so a year to even balance the budget.
OK, let's bring in Jeevan Sander for your take on this. Tough times, tough decisions need to be made, but a lot of people do believe that this is heading towards tax rises, what the Labour Party always seems to do, to tax us out of this 22 billion black hole. Is that the inevitable outcome?
Well, I'll first of all pick up or say that Mark said that £20 billion a rounding area. We are a serious government that is seriously governing in these times. £20 billion is not a rounding error. It's a huge amount of money. And every single pound that we spent, we will account for. Everything we're going to do, we're going to say how we are going to fund it. That does include, for example, hiring more doctors and nurses to get down waiting lists. In terms of future decisions about tax, Rachel will set them out at future budgets. But today, we are being straight with the British people, as we always will be, and we are a responsible government, and we count every single penny.
Could I ask you? Really don't. I mean, come on. You are controlling a £1 trillion budget. You do not account for every pound in that. If you do, you're mad. You round to the nearest million or so. If you are accounting for every pound, you've got too many bureaucrats working on a spreadsheet. You need to be honest as the government about your broad brush approaches about public expenditure. And if you are accounting for every pound, you are wasting money. This is a £1 trillion enterprise, the British government. If you are counting every last 5p, you are wasting taxpayers' money.
And what about that point about the means-tested winter fuel payment? That's going to get a lot of people's, shackles up, so to speak. If that's going to be means-tested, then we hear all the time that means-testing payments is a huge bureaucratic enterprise, and that will have errors. We saw that during payments of universal credit during lockdown, all sorts of fraud errors, and lots of extra people need to be paid to do that. It will cost so much money to actually get these savings back, won't it?
It's a hugely difficult decision. Rachel has to make the entire budget add up, and she's had to make this incredibly difficult decision. I trust Rachel, I trust the team. They got us to a point where actually we're trusting the economy, we're trusting the public finances. She's taking this difficult decision and has to make sure that our programme adds up across the piece, because as well as doing this, as well as restoring our public services, we do also have to ensure that we do invest in growth. We have set out our planning reforms to get infrastructure being built in this country. We have set out how we're going to make energy cheaper with clean energy. We have done things that will help the British economy, and as it grows, we will